Hello, and welcome to Empowerment Talk for Today's Woman. I'm your host, Empowerment Coach Renee Bobb, and I'm so excited you decided to join me today, where I have yet another fantastic and dynamic woman entrepreneur that's going to share with you some insights on how she's been able to turn her dream of owning and operating her own business into reality. But before I bring my guest, I do want to remind you of the upcoming 9th Nashville Women's Empowerment Workshop to be held on January 17, 2015 at the Nashville Entrepreneur Center located downtown Nashville, where I'm going to have a series of seminars and workshops that are geared to give you the tools that you need in order to start and grow and expand your own business. So join us at the 9th Nashville Women's Empowerment Workshop Series, again coming up January 17th, 2015 at the Nashville Entrepreneur Center. Visit us online at www.nashvillewomensempowerment.com, and we hope to see you there. So today I have a dynamic, wonderful guest, Miss Tracy Johnson. Welcome, Miss Tracy.
Thank you so much for having me, Renee.
And I'm so glad that you're here.
I'm glad to be here as well.
So tell us some information about the company that you decided to start, and why is it that you decided to get into the editing business?
Well, my company is called Proof Your Point, and I have a long history of editing in the corporate environment, several decades. And in the last 4 years, I've been doing freelancing editing of books and novels and websites, children's books. And I've always had a love of reading, and I figured I really had a talent for this, and I have a valuable service I can offer to authors.
Wow. And when you're working with authors, what do you find is the biggest mistake, especially first-time authors, that they make when they're thinking about hiring an editor to edit their books?
Well, I would say the first mistake is not considering hiring an editor, because you can read those ebooks and those 90-cent ebooks that are just terrible, have tons of mistakes. I think that one of the concepts is maybe that it's expensive to hire an editor, and instead of them looking at the investment that they should be making in their book.
Wow. And it's so interesting that you should bring that up. I remember interviewing an author many, many years ago, and she was so excited about getting her book on the market. She didn't hire a professional editor like yourself. She just went through the publishing process. She printed 5,000 copies of her book, and in those books there were tons of errors. So what was she supposed to do with 5,000 books with a bunch of errors? Because you know your book outlives you.
Right.
So I guess that kind of really brings to the point of the importance of actually hiring an editor.
Well, sure, and I think nowadays, Renee, with so much self-publishing on the rise, that writers aren't necessarily required to have their manuscript edited like they do through the traditional publishing houses. So, you know, that's easy just to put it out there. But, you know, with traditional publishing, you need an editor first, and they have their series of editors too, 1, 2, 3 different passes to really make it perfect when the book is published.
Well, and I always tell my authors that when you write your book, you rewrite until it's perfect. But again, having the editor is some place that you don't want to skim. Now, I know you have some experience working with some authors. Can you share with us a little about the experience that you had with the one author in California?
Well, I've been working with this author for 5 years. Actually, it's been 7 years since I started reading a couple chapters of her novel. She put the novel aside and then concentrated on writing children's books. So she's written 4 children's books, and I've edited each one of those, and it was quite a fun experience. And then she came back to her novel, and so we spent the last 2 years writing chapter by chapter. She'd send me a chapter, I'd edit it, she'd write the next chapter. So it was sort of a challenge getting the whole thing together and making the formatting consistent and whatnot, but it's been an interesting experience, and I've seen how she's grown as a writer. So she's got a lot of trust in me, which is great. A lot of times she catches herself agonizing over a structure of a sentence, and she'll just say, you know, forget about it. I know Tracy's going to fix it.
Right.
So it's great to have that trust, and she's told me I've actually helped her to become a better writer. So that's really gratifying.
Wow, that's some positive feedback as well.
Yeah.
You know, I always tell authors that, you know, the editor is the one, their job is to make the book perfect. but I guess editors are human also.
That's true. We're
And
not
so
computers.
is that too high of an expectation to put on, someone like yourself?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, there is a pressure there, and I'm sure there's some businesses that have 2 or 3 editors, that they have one person do the first pass and the second. But I do a triple read on all mine, so it may be a little bit more extensive work, but it's easy to miss stuff. There's certain words, and so the second edit, and then after it's all done, I make my revisions, send it back to the writer. We both look at it, and then I look at it one more time.
Very important. Now, can you talk about when someone's thinking about hiring a professional editor, tell me what that step-by-step process looks like.
Well, there's a lot of ways you can go. Referrals, you can ask your friends. If your friends have writers, they can look online. They can look for editors' websites. There's a ton out there. Just go through the different pages and see what they offer. Word of mouth. Just looking in the newspapers, maybe not so much. I would say mostly online, because you can find anything you want online. And then find out what their training is. Try and contact their clients. They should be happy to give you a list of clients that you can ask, how the editing process went, were there any challenges, all that kind of thing. There's lots of questions you can find. You can Google questions to ask. If you don't have, come up with them on your own.
And thank God for Google.
Exactly. Love it.
Right. Now, what's interesting is, do you feel like it's important that if I'm writing a Christian novel, that I connect with an editor that has a Christian background? Or does it even matter in the editing process?
Well, my first instinct is to say, I don't really think it should matter, because the editor should be totally impartial right from the beginning. I'm checking on some scripture verses right now, just to double check that's, exactly what they say, and the formatting of the verse and chapter. So, there's certain books that I wouldn't want to particularly edit myself, possibly certain subject areas, but I think an editor should be totally impartial and just keep the tone and the voice of the author and improve upon the sentence structure and the way it flows.
Yeah, because I would have to say that's the most challenging aspect when I'm dealing with authors and writers, is that they don't want to hire someone that's going to change their voice.
Right.
And change the tone and the flow of how that author writes. And it sounds like that's something that you don't do. You kind of really focus on keeping the flow of the author.
I really try to. And I'll have to be honest, it's quite fun sometimes to get that red, or I know you don't like red, purple pen and want to alter the sentence and to make it better. So there's a fine line, and that's what's kind of challenging, but it's fun at the same time. Because it is their book. I'm not a ghostwriter. I'm not rewriting it for them.
And there's a difference between hiring an editor and having a ghostwriter. Right. Would you not agree?
Yes. I'm not a ghostwriter. I just want to make your sentences look better and provide a better flow and make it easier for the reader to read.
Now, Tracy, there are people who are watching today that really do not have great writing skills, but they have the passion, they have the desire, and they want to get the book out in the market. What kind of tips can you share with them about improving their writing skills?
Well, there's a lot of different ways. Concrete ways. I would suggest using an active voice more than a passive voice. For instance, the sentence, "The recipe had been perfected by Julia Child." That's passive. Julia Child perfected the recipe. That's an active voice. Concrete things like not using too many adverbs, let your adjectives do the harder work. Don't use a lot of tired, worn out cliches. And on the other side, take a class.
Right.
If you haven't written anything since high school or college, go online. There's lots of free classes.
Okay,
There's
excellent.
writing workshops in every area in the country where you live.
Very good.
And last, you write out your draft, read it out loud, put it away for a couple days, and then come back, look at it again with fresh eyes, and see if there's anything you missed.
Excellent. So I want to thank you for being here today. And before we go, can you give your contact information?
Yes, the best way to reach me is via email, and my email address is tj@proof-your-point.com, or you can go to my website, which is proofyourpoint.com. and email me through that access.
Thank you. I appreciate you for coming. And thank all of you for tuning in to another edition of Empowerment Talk for Today's Woman, where I was here with Ms. Tracy Johnson. And be sure to visit her website. And if you have a book that you desire to get on the market, then utilize her services. Thanks again for tuning in. God bless you, and let today be the day that you turn your dreams into reality.